Parents of Reddit, what lessons have to try to teach your kids that completely backfired? I wanted to teach my son the value of money and work ethic because he kept wanting Robux. I decided it would be a great teaching moment and a win-win opportunity as he was just getting to the age in which I think he should start doing chores around the house. He really wanted to buy some skin or something, so I created a chore chart and gave each chore a value. We established a schedule and everything. It was working out majestically. Every day without asking he was doing dishes, cleaning his room, picking up the dog poop. It was epic. Then one day, I came home and nothing had been done. I asked him, "Hey man, what's up with the dishes? Oh, and go pick up the dog poop too." He simply replied, "Nah." Fighting back rage, I simply said, "Excuse me?" He said he made enough money over the last X days that he bought his skin and he was good now. It was hard to argue. Not a parent, but my in-laws love telling this story about my fiance. He was resistant to potty training, and they eventually got him to start using the potty by telling him that he had to be out of pull-ups before a family trip to Disney World because Mickey Mouse only sees big boys and girls. And also, who wants to lug a diaper bag around Disney? Anyway, it went great. They had a great trip. And the day after they got back, he took a shoot in the living room. When asked, he said, "I don't gotta use the potty cause I already saw Mickey Mouse." They very firmly told him that if he was old enough to use logic, he was far too old for diapers, and that was the end of that. My daughter did something similar. My mill promised her a Hello Kitty house playset for learning to use the potty. So after 1 week of using the potty every time she had to go, my mill gave her the Hello Kitty house. Next day she started wetting herself again because she got the house, so what was the point in still using the potty? I explained she still had to use the potty to be a big girl and made a sticker chart. No more promising toys for things the child has to do, but a sticker chart seems to work wonders in my house. When my older son was about 3 or 4 years old, we realized he was starting to act very spoiled and materialistic. We always tried to make him see how lucky he already had it, but he constantly begged us for every toy, candy, and treat he saw anywhere and everywhere. Around that time, I came across a great photo spread that involved the photographer traveling around the world and snapping photos of different children with their most prized possessions. Of course, the kids in the US, Canada, and Europe were mostly photographed in rooms filled with stuff. But there were also photos of children from impoverished nations, usually showing the child with only one old, dirty stuffed animal. I thought I was going to accomplish this brilliant parenting move by sitting him down and going through the photos with him. I'd explain how the kids with rooms like his were beyond lucky, and he should feel more than satisfied with all of the great stuff that he had. Then I would show him the other photos and he would finally understand that there are so many other children in the world with far less than he had. We looked through the photos and talked about each one. We finally got to one with a little boy standing on his cot with his one possession, a well-loved, dingy-looking stuffed monkey. My son looked at it for a long time. I could see his wheels spinning. Success, I thought. After a long bit of silence, he finally looked up at me, gave me a sweet smile and said, "I want that monkey." Not a parent, but when I was around 12, my father suspected that I stayed up late playing video games, even though I didn't. One night he went into my room and told me that I shouldn't play my Game Boy Advance past bedtime because I needed to rest. That's when I realized I could play my Game Boy Advance past bedtime, and I've suffered from insomnia since th. Saw a clip on local news about a toddler saving her mom's life by calling 911 when she collapsed. Figured it was a good idea to teach my toddler 911. Had 2 cops at my door 5 minutes later. A friend of mine was trying to teach his son not to hit his daughter, so anytime the son hit the daughter, he started hitting the son in the head. Not hard, but enough to hopefully jog some sense of empathy. Actual result, the son would cover his head with one hand and smack his sister with the other. When my daughter was 10, she wanted to try out for a community theater version of Beauty and the Beast. She got nervous though, and almost backed out, because she was so sure she wasn't going to make it. My husband, who did some acting in high school, stepped in and said that he would also audition, even though he knew he was never going to make it. He wanted to demonstrate to her that it's okay to audition for something that you don't think you're going to make. She ended up not only just making it, but she got the part of Chip. My husband got the part of Morris, Belle's father. He didn't even want to be in a goddamn play. When my daughter was young, I was trying to teach her the value of money and decided to start giving her an allowance. She had a few tasks to do around the house, and afterwards on the weekends, before we would go out, I'd give her $5. I explained that because she helped out and did her chores, she had earned money to spend on whatever she wanted. She happily accepted and stashed her money in her room. I thought nothing of it. Later that evening, before I tucked her in to bed after reading to her, she goes to her money jar, pulls out $2 and hands it to me and explains that it's for being a good daddy. Edit. It's come to my attention this isn't the definition of backfiring. Please take back your imaginary internet points to answer some questions. After I got the money, I gave her a hug and told her I loved her. When she was asleep, I put the money and some more in her jar. Many years later, as she approaches being a teenager, she still works hard and listens, accomplishes the tasks I set out for her, and doesn't know the value of money. She has not been left wanting. I tried again with giving her money for her birthday and taking her to an aquarium she wanted to go see. She was given enough to pay for a meal, her ticket, souvenirs and a small shopping trip afterwards. She bought small trinkets and a pair of boots and a shirt. She saved almost half the money. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right or wrong. I'm just struggling like every other parent I know. My aunt and uncle were trying to teach my cousin manners and wanted him to address people as Mr. and Mrs. They used each other as examples and consequently were known as Mr. and Uxilly for 2 months. One of the funniest moments of my life was hearing my uncle describe how in the middle of the night, instead of "dad," he started hearing "Mr. Ryan Uxilly." Cracks me up every time. My youngest boy would never listen, and he was always totally fearless. He was also always really lucky. Damn near every time either of us told him "don't do that, you're going to get hurt," he would do it and then not get hurt. So we ended up teaching him that when we said not to do something, that probably meant it was a fun thing to do. I remember really hoping that he would fall and break an arm or something non-life threatening or disabling like that, so he would stop constantly giving us heart attacks, which is weird to say as a parent, but it never happened, so it doesn't matter anyway. He never got anything worse than a small scrape or cut that could be cleaned and covered in 5 minutes before he was back at it again. Looking back, I'm just glad this was before there was anything like Jackass around to further encourage that shoot. Now has a stunt man for movies. Can't say I'm surprised. Told my children they should always have a good reason for what they want to do as a way to curb impulsive behavior. I'm hearing about all the reasons constantly. My dad tried to implement the whole "you must eat all the food on your plate" in our house during meals. My mom was never a fan of that lesson, but my dad was stubborn, so she just let it go. Well, one day my sibling had 2 to 3 bites of food left on their plate and was very clear that they were absolutely full and couldn't eat another bite. Dad wasn't having it and insisted they could not leave the table until all the food on their plate was gone. My sibling realized they weren't going to convince our dad that they were too full and finished the last few bites and then proceeded to vomit on the table and our dad. He stopped enforcing the rule after that. When I was about 2 years old, my family was at a game in Angels Stadium. My mother went to the restroom and left me and my siblings with my dad. While he was busy watching, I wandered off. When they eventually found me, I was halfway around the stadium. A crowd had gathered to watch as a police officer held me out at arm's length while I screamed, "Call the police. This man is not my daddy," over and over again. My parents had taught me stranger danger, but forgot to teach me what police look like. Edit. Grandma. Told my children repeatedly that if I found any more mess/junk on their bedroom floor, I would be donating it to the thrift store. I told them they had 15 minutes to clean it up off the floor. Came back to find everything picked up, except they went into the kitchen cupboards and had put every food they didn't like in a nice neat pile right in the middle of the floor. I always tell my children that the lottery is a tax on people that are bad at math. I'll let my 8-year-old spend a few hard-earned dollars on a Powerball ticket to prove it, and he won $100. Taught my now 16-year-old to always compliment people who insulted you. We were in a Burlington coat factory in Michigan when my mother was shopping for a bathing suit to take to Florida. There were few to choose from, so she was complaining. My kid was 4. A woman trying on pants and said something rude to my mom, who was asking my opinion, and my daughter caught on that my mother was agitated. She squeezed out behind me and told the woman, "Your teeth are such a pretty yellow." Edit. Holy shit, Reddit. 20k upvotes. I'd tell you this is my most upvoted comment, but I doubt you'd care. My parents taught me to count in one on when I saw somebody doing something illegal. I called the cops on the Wiggles movie I was watching when I was 5 because a clown stole a cake. Luckily then one only operator realized I was young. My story didn't make sense because it was a kids movie. Asked to talk to my mom before sending out cops. Playing carnival/fair games is a waste of money. My son wanted to spend his $20 to win a Pikachu stuffed animal from his allowance that he saved up. We told him he would be wasting his money and he would not win. He spent $15.00 and won the biggest prize. To be fair, playing carnival/fair games isn't a waste of money if you have the mindset that you are paying for the fun of the experience and not the prize. Edit. If you can't play a ring toss without developing a terrible gambling problem and losing your house, I don't know what to tell you. When I was a Cub Scout, my family and I attended a large fundraising dinner. This included a raffle with many prizes, the best of which was a brand new pool table. At the time, I had an allowance of $2 a week. I asked my parents if I could use up my allowance money for the next 6 weeks and spend $12 on raffle tickets to try winning the pool table. Everyone wanted that prize, and everyone was adding handfuls of tickets. There were dozens upon dozens stuffed into the jar. My parents decided that this would be a good lesson about the dangers of gambling. They agreed to let me use my allowance for the next 6 weeks, but warned that I wouldn't win the prize and would not be given any more money for quite some time. I'd have to learn the hard way not to pay with cash I didn't have. I won the pool table. As good people, we taught our kids that littering isn't nice. As humans, we also let some curse words fly in front of them. We were at our city's 4th of July celebration when the oldest was 4. We were walking around and someone tossed their trash on the ground. Captain Litterbug flew into action, picked up the trash and yelled, "Hey asshole, you dropped this," while tapping them on the butt. I tried the whole have your kids quote chores for pay and bid against one another. It's supposed to teach them about working for their money and not expecting handouts like an allowance. It turned into every time I asked them to do something I could, "How much will you pay me?" I've been teaching my kids that life isn't always fair. The tantrums when one is invited to a birthday party have been too much. It's been helping some. Then I was playing tic-tac-toe with my youngest. She covered up the column she wanted to use to win. When I told her that cheating isn't fair and I didn't want to play if she was going to cheat, she reminded me, "Life isn't fair, mama." Touche, kiddo. Not me but my dad teaching the nephew. He hated smiling, so in pictures my dad would tell him to say whiskey. When he tried cheese it wasn't the same. Anyway, at school the principal was taking a picture of the class and tells everyone to say cheers. My nephew very loudly says whiskey. Not a parent, but I work in a school. At my school we have a lot of kids with learning disabilities, more than in your average school, as we have a special program for it and get special funding. So one of the first lessons of the school year is everybody needs different things to learn. And if somebody is getting something different from you, it's because that's what they need to learn at school. You know, a kid-friendly way of explaining accommodations. Now, the usual accommodations we offer are special chairs/wiggle seats, extra breaks during the day, and extended testing time and tests taken in a quiet room. One kid, however, has decided to take the "everyone learns differently" lesson to heart and now talks in a fake British accent. "I live in America BTW all day," because it helps him learn. Then all of the other kids started talking in fake accents. I told him no food downstairs. He had to eat at the table if he wanted to, and not his playroom. When the second kid came, I would bring down his bottle and snacks so he could eat solid foods that helped his teething while we played. My older kid flipped out because there is no food downstairs. That was like a basic rule of life to him. When I said it's okay because his brother is a baby and him here, he took advantage of some shared snacks the kids had later. He would try to give his brother snacks that he liked so he could eat them downstairs too because his brother was. So I see him sitting in his play tent eating animal crackers and giving his brother one as they hide from me because he knows it's technically wrong. But he eventually saw the reason why I made the rule, because although the younger kid would eat 1 to 2, he would then mash a third into a paste and rub it over the toys. That he could hang out with people I didn't like, but that it was because I trusted him to stay true to who he was. His friends could act a certain way, but he could recognize that to be someone's friend didn't mean he needed to follow their behaviors. Sounded good and accepting in my head. Till he hung out with friends who he got in trouble with at school for weed, and whether you like weed or hate it, think it should be legal or not, it's still illegal on school grounds, and he got expelled. Guess he didn't heed my lesson, or maybe it was just a bad message. Now I tell him to avoid people who don't care about his best interests. Be friendly, don't be friends. My parents did the thing where they gave 4-year-old me a sip of Budweiser under the impression that I could say that it was yucky and then turn it into some lesson about not drinking mommy and daddy drinks or whatever. I instead took a sip and said Can I have one? The lesson that beer is good has lasted to adulthood. When my son was about 3 or 4, he started to ask about how babies are born. I sat him down and gave him a very simple, age-appropriate explanation. He just looked at me, shook his head, and just said no. Very calmly, but in a "I can't believe you think that's how it works" tone of voice, like it told him fake news. I was prepared for difficult questions and even prepared for the fact that he might ask me things that even I didn't know, but I was completely unprepared for him to just simply not believe me when I told him the truth. I just sat there not knowing what to do while he went back to playing Lego. Not a very big backfire, but here's a true story. My grandmother died a few years ago. My brother decided to use this as a teaching moment for his 2 daughters, and he did his best to explain what was going on. He told them that he was flying out to Florida to attend the wake. "What's a wake?" his daughter asked. "It's a thing that happens before the funeral where we go to see Nana's body." His daughter's eyes widened with fear. He had a moment of panic, like maybe he'd made a mistake. Then she asked, "What do they do with her head?" Not me, but the school. My sons were in kindergarten and 2nd grade when they came home wearing "going to be drug-free" stickers and talking about drugs, asking me about drugs. Neither of them ever knew or cared about what drugs were before the freaking school told them. Now they are fascinated. Now I've had to hit them with some truth about drugs with conversations that I did not expect for another 8 to 10 years at least. You try explaining meth and LSD to a 5-year-old. It's surreal. I know this is common. How dare backfired, egg. But seeing it in action pissed me off. My kids were begging for a pet. I don't want to take care of a pet, and I told them that they don't clean up after themselves without me hassling them. So why would they clean up after a pet without me hassling them? Told them if they could keep their room clean for 6 months without me telling them, they could get a pet. Youngest child proceeds to clean room, then move clothes and a sleeping bag into the hallway and lock his door, so his room can't get dirty as he sleeps in the hallway. One of my 5-year-old twins was still having occasional accidents because she would get so caught up in playing/doing something else that she just wouldn't go and would pee her pants. To combat this, we would give her a special prize of some variety when she wouldn't have an accident. This, in turn, caused her twin sister to start having accidents so she could get prizes for not having accidents, even though she was fine on this front beforehand. We had to rethink our methods